And we're back with another episode of Franchise My Business, the podcast for franchisors, hosted by franchisors. I'm your host, Kevin Oldham, and we're going to talk about scaling too quickly today. Scaling. I think by nature, scaling is like this big buzzword. People are like, oh, I got to scale my company and all these things. Scale by definition means that you found something that has leverage within your business, and you're able to increase your profits and not necessarily increase your cost structure, or at least not commensurately. And I think franchises are one of the best scalable business models on the planet. It's one of the reasons that I love this business model. Whether it's franchising, licensing, I don't care what it is, but taking your own intellectual property, sharing it with others, and allowing them to do their thing, create a business based on the work that you created. Like super, super cool. That's not the first time I've talked about this. But it may be the first time I've talked about scaling too quickly. It is possible to grow too quickly. We see it all the time. As a matter of fact, I think that history is probably littered with these examples. I just did not pull any out because I'm going to think about companies that have kind of crashed and burned or have grown too quickly and then had to shore up their foundation, right? And we won't call any companies out, but let's just think about organizations that grow really quickly. So fast growth companies typically have something in common. Either they're scalable based on a network of sorts, technology. Technology is probably the most scalable piece of technology. Or we look at media as well. Media is highly scalable. You can create a video and have it, reach millions and billions of people very quickly. So media business models like licensing and franchising, technology. Sure, you can scale through people as well. You can do the arbitrage game, but those businesses are a little bit more challenging to scale. And typically it's a combination of all of these things. It's not, just either or, right? But no matter what you do, whether it's scaling with tech, people, your business model, whatever it is, I think one of the dangers with scaling too quickly is the fact that a lot of companies lose their identity as they're going through that process. If you think about hyper-growth types of companies, for example, the types of companies that are founder-led, typically, not saying this is categorical because you can look at Facebook or a variety of other companies where the founder is still serving in the head role. But a lot of times it takes a different skill set to grow a startup than it does to scale, from, let's just say 100 units to 500 or whatever it is, right? And sometimes that means that people are changing. Sometimes it means that technology is changing. It just means that there is always change. Like that's going to be a constant when you're scaling your business. There's always going to be change. But I think that one of the things that gets left behind a lot of times is the culture of the organization or the original mission of the organization. So when you're growing quickly and things are, there's friction, you're breaking things, there's new people joining the organization, it can be very challenging to scale the culture, for example. Now, I know for a fact, I'm going to go back and look here, that we recorded an episode earlier this year that talked about scaling culture. So it's going to be our episode with Ben Crosby. He was with the Drip Bar, and I think it's episode 30. It may not have played out that far, or may not have played out so that he was episode 30. But scaling culture, he's one of the guys who's figured out how to do it. It is an art, not a science. Because think about it. When we as franchisors are, setting the vision and culture has kind of organically occurred as a result of the vision that we've set out, the people that we've hired, then you start taking your business model and sharing it with others. It's like the largest game of telephone. You're training your franchisee, the franchisees then training the people who work there. And it's kind of challenging to make sure that all of these things, particularly culture, the why behind the business, the how, all the lives that have been impacted, whether they're internally, the franchisees, or whether they're the end users, the customers of the product or service that we're franchising, like that can be very challenging. But I think in addition to, the culture aspect, which I think is probably one of the more challenging things to scale, is also people, right? So people that believe what you believe and that are in tune with the mission of the organization, and then furthermore are willing to dedicate their, this period in their work lives to that mission. First of all, like, that's a win to find people that generally are like aligned with your mission and believe in what you believe in. But then secondly, have the skill set and all of the things that are needed to serve your franchisees, and doing so at scale as an organization that might be growing rapidly. That is typically one of the things that causes a little bit of pain in a franchise organization. It's that scaling of the support staff, the home office staff, right? The team that comes out and supports the franchisees. You've got to have really, really good processes for identifying the best talent and finding people that believe in the mission. Because as a franchisor, you're serving other franchisees. I mean, you're a mentor. I don't care what role you have at the home office. They are looking to you for support. And so you've got to kind of have that coach mindset. And that can be challenging. Like, that can be one of the more challenging aspects, is finding the right people to serve the right roles to support the growth of a, potentially exponential growing type of organization. I think that brand is also one of those things that is hard to scale. It's actually not hard to scale. It's hard to monitor that the brand is not getting lost or used in different ways than intended when you are growing very quickly. Because when you're growing very quickly, you may have multiple locations opening this week, and then you've got franchisee issues with legacy folks, and you've just got all these other things that are vying for your attention, and it can just make staying on top of the brand and making sure that everything's cohesive nationally or internationally a little bit more challenging. The faster you grow, the more places there are for things to break. And it's just a reality. I don't care what type of business you have. And so scaling too quickly, it can also mean that you award franchise territories to the wrong partners. I've seen this happen where growth can be intoxicating. Like, it can feel really cool to grow. It can feel really cool to your company's bank account to see initial franchise fees dropping in and a new line of royalty revenue from your new franchisees. It can be very, very intoxicating, but you could also go look at history and see that history is littered with companies that had cash coming at them. It wasn't a cash problem. Literally, a lot of times the scaling aspect, particularly a franchise, isn't going to be like a cash issue. It's going to be something else. It's going to be an operational issue. It might be a marketing issue. It could be a quality assurance issue, keeping your franchisees on script, like making sure that they follow the business model. You can watch The Founder, the show about McDonald's, and see how some of those franchisees went off script and started serving fried chicken or whatever it was. So there's just no shortage of things that can go incorrectly when you're growing or scaling too quickly. And so you've got to make sure that you just keep a pulse on it. My recommendation would be have a stand-up once a month with your executive team to make sure that, if we're in hyper growth mode, that things are not breaking, that we've got everything shored up. We're looking out the front window. If we know that we're bringing on, if we've awarded 100 territories that we anticipate are going to open over the next 18 to 24 months, what does our staffing plan look like to support them? What are the key hires that we need? And making sure that you have the resources to support basically the promises that you've signed up for. Because as a franchisor, if you say, hey, we're going to support you through master franchisee of these 50 units or whatever that you've bought in fill in the blank country, you've got to make sure that you can honor those promises and support those individuals as well as the people that work for them. So there you go. I'm sure that we could do a bunch of research and look at companies that have crashed and burned, but this is a positive podcast, and we want to focus on just avoiding some of the blind spots that I've seen, that we've seen in the franchise industry, and frankly in business overall. And scaling too quickly without the appropriate resources is definitely one of those things. Until next time, I'm your host, Kevin Oldham. I hope you have a phenomenal week and be well.